people are just unloading Teslas at a ridiculous rate right now. And it's not like these are bad cars, right?
But you can buy cheaper electric cars anywhere in the world that work well.
Not that have self-driving.
At what point are Teslas so cheap that you just buy them and strip the batteries out and resell the batteries?
If you separate the cultural thing going on with Elon and Trump and Mega and all of that stuff, and you just look at the Tesla objectively, they are definitely the best American-made car you can buy.
Elon just keeps putting himself in the news. And because of that, every time you have a new thing in the news or a new cut, then like people are like mad again. Good thing that the Cybertruck is bulletproof. Now there was a purpose for it.
Yeah.
Welcome to another episode of More or Less.
With real Sam and real Dave.
With real Sam and real Dave.
It doesn't really matter though. Shouldn't we just go skiing again and let the fucking AIs do their thing?
I think we should, actually.
Dave's favorite line that you said last week. For anyone who didn't listen to last week's episode, Sam and Dave were gone on a ski trip. Surprise, surprise. And Jess and I decided to have fun with a little tool I found on Hugging Face.
Brit deserves all the credit for this. I would never have figured it out.
I was tinkering, and all I did was uploaded 45 seconds of Dave's voice on a different podcast and Sam's voice on a different podcast. And then I got to just make up a script of whatever they would say. And I found it to be funny, but it might have just been me. But then Dave got home from Alaska and was like, that was actually kind of funny. But I haven't heard Sam's response.
I think it was fine. I would never say those things. So it's like very obviously not me.
I think you would say later wives.
You would have said later wives.
Yeah, Dave, that was Dave's first comment.
I would have said later wives. I feel like that's more of a Dave thing.
Well, I think we're in the splitting hairs here. I thought the sound of Dave's voice sounded very Dave-like. Sam a little less so to me, but like...
It's because you know me better.
Yeah.
Guys, I spent like a total of 40 minutes training this, this AI on your. I think if I spent like 2 or 3 hours, I could have made it really good. But we were busy women last week without our husbands in town.
The problem, unfortunately, is I think it probably is good enough to trick JP Morgan, which is the real fucking problem for voice authorizations.
Oh, what else can I do with your voice, Sam?
If there's like millions of dollars missing from my bank account, I'm calling you, Brit.
That's your guys' thing. So
yeah, you do owe me millions of dollars. So
no, are you kidding? You think in the last 2 weeks you owe me?
We're getting further from Mars by the second.
I think we're getting closer to Mars.
Again, for people that don't know what we're talking about, Sam and I have a bet that in 2040, no human will step foot on Mars. I think that a human will step foot on Mars, and Sam doesn't. And all the LLMs seem to agree with me with 70% likelihood.
That's just not true.
It is. You can literally go.
Okay. Guys, this is one of the busiest news weeks of our lifetimes. We are not going to talk about this. Okay. I don't know, lifetimes. This news. I felt like sending a message to my team today saying, stop reporting stories because we're reporting too many, which I obviously did not do. And team that listens to this assiduously, keep reporting stories. But there is literally so much news. So, day we taping this, Politico has reported that Elon is stepping back from DOGE, that President Trump has told his cabinet. Elon calls it fake news. I got to say, guys, when Politico has a big scoop, they are right. They scooped the big Roe v. Wade overturn from the Supreme Court, and probably one of the most epic scoops of the century, since no one ever breaks news out of the Supreme Court. So not comparing these two events, but this also follows reporting that the information had earlier in this week about people who work at DOGE returning to their day jobs, often to their Musk companies. So I think it's very, very clear there's going to be a shift here. We also have the biggest private fundraising ever with Sam's favorite company, OpenAI, to discuss, and the release of their new image model. Also, MCP. Should we be talking about that, people?
What is MCP?
Is that the name of a run on a ski mountain?
MCP. You guys are going to love this. Sam, you are going to love this. Get ready. MCP is the protocol by which LLMs are actually going to be able to do things with agents and replace apps.
Maybe.
Oh, it's some protocol someone came up with?
Yes. Well, specifically, Anthropic came up with it. But the interesting...
It's not clear it's going to be the one, but yeah.
Guys, let's let the listeners know what it is, and then you can wax on.
Yeah. TikTok. We have to talk about TikTok.
You know, we really do and don't. And today in my edit meeting with my Hong Kong bureau chief, I was literally like, can you just make this story end? And she was like, you know, amen, sister.
But Amazon just put in a last minute bid.
Well, and we have the favorite one ever, which is the Deel spying. Another 30 under 30 special.
Oh, yeah. The affidavit that came out. Yeah, that one's saucy. I like it.
What, really? There's more?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you guys pick. Choose your adventure.
We also have Tesla's worst sales and Roblox adding parental controls.
Well, the Tesla sales is definitely related to Elon and DOGE, no question. Where should we start?
I think we got to start with Elon, Tesla, that whole smorgasbord.
Morins, are you going to buy a 7th Tesla or are you done?
Dave, should we tell them about our Tesla buying strategy?
I think Sam would maybe like this. Sam, my thing was maybe we should go and buy a very large parking lot and start putting Teslas into the parking lot. It might be actually the greatest undervalued asset class in the market right now.
Well, I was intrigued by the free Teslas they were giving away.
Yeah.
Where it was like the cost of a cell phone plan. It's like $300 a month and you can have a car. And like it's $1,000 down.
Jess was saying something about you like weighing the idea of buying a new Tesla or renting a car for like a 2-week trip you have coming up.
Yeah, I mean the math is very simple, which is that we do try to send numbers in various locations. We rent cars. Renting cars in vacation spots is unbelievably expensive. It truly is actually cheaper to just buy Teslas and stick them in vacation spots for the whole year.
What do you think your mom would do if we parked a Tesla in her beach house? Do you think she'd really go crazy? I think she'd go crazy.
We park them at our beach house next door is what we do.
What I've seen people do is putting duct tape on the logo on the car so they're pretending it's not a Tesla.
I would put the lease payment amount over the Tesla logo on a piece of paper, which is free $99.
But you guys, the used market is even more intense, right? People are just unloading Teslas at a ridiculous rate right now. And it's not like these are bad cars, right? It's a fully cultural underpricing moment.
Obviously, that is going on too. But you can buy cheaper electric cars anywhere in the world that work well. And this was Tesla's biggest problem before Trump was president.
Not that have self-driving.
At what point are Teslas so cheap that you just buy them and strip the batteries out and resell the batteries as like an arbitrage? Like how cheap do they have to get?
No, I mean, Sam, I think that's a reasonable strategy too. We could like lever up, buy a ton of them and sell the parts back to Tesla.
Well, especially if you think about it, especially as like these tariffs go into place, the best thing we could do is potentially buy free Teslas, strip them of batteries, and then sell them to other people.
But I think you could also sell the rest of the parts back into the Tesla supply chain.
No, they're not going to have money to buy them. I mean, if they don't sell cars.
You know what we'd have to do is we have to make some sort of like the steering wheel, like some sort of necklace ornament for like MAGA people. You know, like you wear Tesla steering wheels, sell them that. Like there's a lot of opportunities here.
Do you guys feel like, I mean, you are proud members of the cult of Tesla. Has that changed or no?
They're just great cars. Like, look, I think at the end of the day, it's the best American-made car that there is, right? Like, it's unequivocal. If you kind of separate the cultural thing going on with Elon and Trump and Mega and all of that stuff, and you just look at the Tesla objectively, they are definitely the best American-made car you can buy. And if you can go further and just say that it is the best EV, like by almost an exponential long shot, because nobody else has self-driving. And the self-driving component to me is actually the hardest thing to say goodbye to. Yeah, it's not fun to drive a Tesla right now. Like it's like really kind of a strange, and I actually think that's factoring into the moment with Elon for what it's worth. I think that there was a crossover point that happened in the last 3 weeks where things got like really intense, and you're seeing it show up in the physical experience in the real world of people driving Teslas. You're seeing it show up in their sales numbers. I think it's the worst quarterly sales in, I believe, 3 years. Like their Q1 sales were the worst in 3 years.
And that's when the cars cost $300 a month and $1,000 down.
Yeah. So the cultural impact is actually becoming like super real, I think.
Good thing that the Cybertruck is bulletproof. Now there was a purpose for it.
Okay, so last week while you guys were gone, we were debating whether the sort of tenor of Elon and Tesla within Silicon Valley was better or worse than outside of Silicon Valley. Do you feel like people are still supporting Elon and Tesla more than the normal everyday person here where we live, or less?
I think people in Silicon Valley just don't even fucking care anymore. Like, I think the story is just so burned out. Like, I think the interesting thing about the whole DOGE thing is Elon just keeps putting himself in the news, right? And because of that, every time you have a new thing in the news or a new cut, then like people are like mad again, right? Whereas like, I think in Silicon Valley, he's just so deeply overexposed that everyone's just like tired of the story, right? Is my basic view. It's kind of like the same thing with like TikTok. It's like a war of attrition. It's just like, TikTok should be banned, like from first principles. I've been saying this for 2+ years, but like even I'm just like burned out on this story, right? And so I just think it's like, I think that's kind of like where we reached on a lot of these things in Silicon Valley. Is like just a total war of attrition. It's like, you know, even like OpenAI, it's like, I think I saw this thing about Tim O'Reilly saying like it's pretty obvious that like they stole all the proprietary information from Safari and like their books to like build and it's like, it's total, I'm sure it's true. We all know that they stole everything, but they just have kind of like war of attrition their way out of it, where like everyone's just defeated and it's like, whatever.
Well, this is the strategy all along. It's just to like fatigue everyone of anything until they are beaten down.
Yeah, the modern 2025 strategy in general is to war of attrition through all the noise, right? Like there's so much noise. You can play a war of attrition almost across any topic. And as long as you go long enough, people are so fatigued by everything else going on that you're going to get away with it, right? And it's like kind of crazy.
It's the thing with universities too. Like I spent a lot of time recently because there's a Columbia and the Harvard stuff is blowing up this week.
Yeah, that seems like a thing worth talking about, by the way. Like that's a serious number. Like $8 billion is non-trivial.
Can you guys, Sam, can you summarize the situation?
Well, the federal government kind of did Columbia plus on Harvard and said, by the way, you have $9 billion from us over the next X years. And if you don't like reform and get over your anti-Semitism and blah, 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 we're yanking it. It's like it's a really challenging topic. Honestly, in a lot of ways, it just increases anti-Semitism because now it's like, fuck the Jews. They took Harvard's money and like all the research. And so it's like complicated on that angle. It's important for the government. That's the tool they have, right? To like say, hey, chain up your act. But it's this really interesting balancing act of like, you put it on a knife edge and you have reactionary faculty who there's a bunch of moderates that what you should say is, hey, let's actually solve these problems. We do actually have problems. Like this is like the thing, the government's kind of rattling a big sword. Let's solve them and move on. But there's also a thing where we're like, well, fuck these guys from an external influence perspective. Now we're going to dig in their heels in the other direction. And so it's kind of all crazy, right? But like, I do think when you think about the modern reality of like PR strategies and where these games are, it's all about this kind of combination of, can you push something hard enough to get a win quickly or get the win versus like if you don't and it just stays around the hoop too long, there's just this war of attrition and fatigue where it all just kind of fizzles out, right? And I think that's like the real dynamic in a lot of things.
Which, by the way, Sam, to that point, I was looking at the TikTok news this week, and the most, other than the Amazon thing, the most interesting thing being talked about, there's like profiles of Larry Ellison in the New York Times, and there's like all this stuff going on. But there's one little detail in there, which is that here we are at the very end of this very long, very arduous news story, and China will still retain control of the algorithm, right? Like, so they did win the war of attrition at the end of the day. Like, it sounds like they're going to...
You could have read that in sentence 1 of 3 information stories published before, Dave. Just, I'm sorry, I have to say that, but like...
I know, but I'm just saying, like, we're here, whatever it is, 2 days before the deadline. And that's still a detail that was the primary detail. The primary national security risk is that they have any control over the distribution of media inside of our borders. And here we are, 2 days before, and that singular point is still being debated.
So let's pick up on this fatigue point. So are we in a cycle of perpetual fatigue? Like, what does that mean? Like, I mean, that has big implications for the news industry, but I think the news companies are doing pretty well right now because people are also glued to the drama. But like, I don't know. Do you guys think about what that means more broadly or no?
It just seems like there's like less activism overall, right, to fight these things for the general consumer. And one technique I was told last week was to like stop caring about all of it and just pick the one thing you do care about and try to be like active and vocal towards that, which maybe is good advice, but there's like 100 things. There's a new thing every day, as we know. So we just can't fight all of these battles in terms of what we care about as consumers. And then of course, like if it impacts your company or you're like a lobbyist, that's a whole different story.
Here's the thing that I've learned from my, social media break.
Oh, but you're back.
You're back, Dave.
I relapsed for one weekend. It's now gone off my phone again.
I have a suggestion, Dave. After your point, I have a suggestion for you.
The fact remains that I did the experiment. And the thing that I learned is that there are two levels to the outrage. There is Jess, you're right, the news organizations are doing a good job at writing the primary story. What then ends up happening is that social media is 1,000 or like a Cambrian explosion of opinions that are kind of like activism porn, right? People think they're taking action to fight for the thing that they care about by, saying their opinion on social media, but they're actually not. They're doing nothing. They're actually just expending their energy into the ether, and it's not having any practical effect in the real world. Who's actually having a real effect in the real world? Whoever these activism organizations are that organize the protests around Tesla dealerships, like they're having a real impact right now, right? They're scaring Tesla owners. Tesla owners want to sell their cars. People are afraid to be driving their cars on the road right now. I know because I've heard lots of Tesla owners of various different stripes saying this. And so, like real world activism still has its same impact, right? But activism porn on the internet, which is just reaction to what the mainstream media is writing, has almost no impact. And in fact, just uses your energy and gives the space for these war of attritions to actually play out because people are just using their energy to no end. At least that's my point of view.
The other thing there, and I know we don't cover politics on this pod, nor would we pretend to, but we had the very closely contested Wisconsin Supreme Court election this week that went in the favor of the Democrats. And Musk had spent millions of dollars trying to fight it. I think that's an example of people doing things, to your point. I mean, so there are, if you talk about the protests, you can talk about some very, very key contested elections. So
at the same time, though, the Florida, House races, like they won by a long shot on the Republican side. So it wasn't like all winning.
Yeah, no. I'm not saying, I wasn't predicting a swing in the other direction. I was just talking about examples of on the ground kind of activism and things showing up.
Yeah, sure.
Dave, here's my suggestion for social media. Or it's a question. Is there a middle ground? Like, does it have to be cold turkey or not? I think it's a genuine question. Like the platforms are designed to suck you in and make it very hard to do a middle ground. But this is something I'm wondering. Because when you're like cruising down an Alaska slope and you want to share like epic footage with the world, that is awesome. And you should. But like, do we then have to go cold turkey? Do I have to keep texting you all my awesome photos is what I'm saying.
It's hard. I will tell you, having taken the time off and then coming back, it really is a striking feeling to turn it back on. Like it completely kind of becomes a part of your headspace for the entire, time. And you can really feel it. I don't know. I highly recommend it to go cold turkey. I think you have to go a couple weeks, maybe even a month before your mind just stops thinking about it, and then come back and feel what it feels like. Like to me, it's not dissimilar to, I quit alcohol in 2015. I don't drink alcohol, but every once in a while I'll have a beer or whatever. And you can really feel it when you do that. Right. And social media is identical in my experience. So I don't know. I don't know if there's a middle ground. It's hard to say.
I had 2 drinks on our trip and was so drunk. I took me all night to sleep because I just don't drink.
Dave, what is drunk Sam like? Tell us what happened. Dave, give us the tea.
I don't remember which night that was.
How many domain names did you buy?
We didn't buy any domain names, but we did launch a meme coin. Yeah.
Okay, we're not talking about it. I don't want to talk about it.
It's a great meme coin.
This is your Jet A1, right?
Yeah.
The currency of fun.
Okay. You can sidebar with them. So, okay. So that's how the world is feeling right now. I think we do have to talk a little bit about AI. We really do, even if you guys don't want to.
We can talk about it. It's very simple. Masa put $30 billion into this OpenAI. What have I said all along? When Masa buys, you sell fuck out, right? And like, this would be the moment.
Okay. But Sam, I actually prepared for this conversation with some facts.
By the way, where did Masa even get $30 billion from? Where is he hiding all this money?
We wrote a story about that too. You guys really need to catch up on your information reading. We have the banks he's borrowed from. It's all in there.
We've been busy.
You know what? I'm going to create you an AI that's going to give you all the things so you don't miss them from the information. Okay.
You can vibe code it, Jess. It's no problem.
It should be called itoldyousO.theinformation.com. And like, it should just listen to you speaking and then reference articles and be like, I told you so.
I just want you guys to have the information first. But Brit, one of my favorite takeaways from our fun conversation last week was that my very traditional media friends, although, yeah, they're traditional now, even though they're digital, are like vibe coding products at their company. I thought that was so cool.
Everyone's vibe coding, Jess. You got to get in on this.
Ben has built a bot to read semaphore articles and respond or say how like JD Vance would respond to them or something, which is potentially interesting.
So much value being created in the world.
Did you guys see this kid at Brown that emailed every single person at Brown?
No. What did he email them?
He basically built his own version of DOGE and asked every person at Brown what they did this week.
That's funny.
Sam, I thought you would have seen this already. It was a pretty funny. I kind of want to hire the guy.
He's going to get hired. That's a resume builder.
He built a bot that looked at every title and guessed whether or not it was an essential job or not. And then he emailed everybody asking what they were actually doing this week. And then sent it all to the administrators being like, here's how you should, improve the cost per student.
Are colleges on spring break? Did colleges do spring break? I don't even know.
They do. Yeah. They do spring break.
He got in a lot of trouble. I think he got ad boarded or whatever the equivalent is.
Yeah, that's a badge of honor.
Back to OpenAI. So Sam says sell. This thing is still growing though.
Yeah, I mean, $500 million in chat revenue a month is pretty good. 1
million new users per day. I don't even think we ever got there at Facebook.
Per hour.
How many of those are bots though? Kidding. Get it? It's like a recursive.
Okay, but that's my question. And maybe to Dave and Brit, and then we'll let Sam retort. But think about that. I was going to say there are a lot of data. There are a million data points about incredible momentum.
I will say that I've had many less moments on OpenAI, but I think that I'm leaning more. And also because of like all the product launches and improvements that have been made, I'm like finding it's, remember when we used to every week on this pod be like, which one are you using this week? Gemini, Claude, GPT? Like we were kind of switching and testing them all. And I'm personally finding I'm settling into just one, which is mostly GPT.
Really? Because I mostly settle into Grok.
Oh, have you? You've turned Grok?
Why, Sam? Say more.
I don't know. They're all next to each other on my home screen buttons. And that's the first one it's actually closest to my thumb. That's why these things are all going to 0.
That's not why you're clicking it. You're clicking it for some other reason. And the question is why.
You think you'll be entertained, right? I mean,
it is funnier.
It's funnier. It's faster. Like ChatGPT, it's fine. I just don't care. Like they're fine.
Okay, but Sam, what do you make of this real business momentum? I mean, we reported their revenue target this year is $12.7 billion, up from $4 billion last year, and they're on track to hit it.
I mean, it's obviously big. I think the thing that everyone miscalculates is like internet big, right? Internet just very big. And so when internet big, like you can make and like Stripe works, then like it's pretty easy to sell a lot of shit.
Do you talk non-grammatically correct just to spite Jess as a journalist? It's like
internet big is a great hat.
it's brandable. Internet big is like an important, you want brandable investment theses.
But Sam, what's the disconnect? So internet big, but you negative because commoditized.
Internet big, sell dollar for 50 cents is like very easy to sell lots of dollars.
They're only projected to lose 44 billion between
just 44 billion
2023 and 2028, according to the information.
The thing that I don't know, which is the Masa question, is what they're doing is internet big. AI right now is the cheapest money in the world, right? This is actually partially why I think you talk about the X. We didn't even talk about the X and X at AI merger that happened last week. Like, there's so many fucking things happening. But like, it's like, why did you merge those things? I said this to someone else. It's basically AOL Time Warner if Time Warner had a shitload of debt. And like the upshot is like the cheap money right now is for the AI thing, right? And so the interesting thing with OpenAI is they have such cheap money. And so because they have cheap money, they're buying all these like real assets with super cheap money. And that's going to work out terribly for most investors. But, you know, the reality is that they end up with like $100 billion of infrastructure that someone else gave them for 10% of the company. I mean, look, forget all liquidation preferences and whatever else. It's like an interesting trade, right? Is what I would say. Like, so it's just a weird sloshing of money around. Again, I'm not anti the fact that you can build these things will be useful. I just don't know that they're valuable. And I think the difference between useful and valuable is like a really important thing to internalize.
The way I've been thinking about this, I had a very large investor, one of our LPs, ask me this question last night because they were looking at opportunity, I think at 240 or something. And
to buy or to sell?
To buy. And so the question is this a $1 trillion company or a multi-trillion dollar company? So if you think about this through the lens of just company building, I think you have to look at it, I think, very similarly to Facebook in the same era of growth.
That's certainly what they want you to think.
Yeah, no question. And so then you have to ask, like, well, who's around the table? Who's over there building this thing? And I think it's interesting that a lot of the people that helped build Facebook, you know, not everyone, but there are a significant number of people over there in the executive ranks that are ex-Facebook people. There's people on the board that are ex-Facebook people. This thing is like, if you believe the idea that Silicon Valley is one big company where everybody just changes jobs, like changing jobs in Silicon Valley is just moving divisions inside of the company. A lot of great people have gone over there to help build OpenAI. And the execution risk is one of, you know, can they continue the growth rate on users? Can they continue to keep people engaged? Can they continue to monetize in the main, I guess there's like two main ways that they're monetizing right now, like direct subscriptions to users, direct to enterprise and API. Do they add an advertising business? Can they execute on that? And so if you look at it like a 5 to 7 year time horizon, can you see this becoming one of the $1 trillion big companies in Silicon Valley? I think you can actually underwrite that from a company perspective, right?
So I think you're totally wrong. Let me so just to push back. I agree that a bunch of Facebook people have gone there, right, over time. And I have a much more cynical read than you do about that, which is here's what happened.
What, they're just opportunists?
No. It's much more cynical.
I mean, a lot of these people went Facebook, then Uber, now they're there.
It's much more cynical than that, which is basically in the early internet, you had Google and Facebook, which had two things. One is they had explosive user growth. They had they had all these amazing things. They were also unfucking believably good businesses, right? From like a fundamentals perspective, the costs versus the potential monetization was like off the charts good, right? And a lot of people of our generation experienced that. And it was like the most exciting, most amazing, world-changing thing you could possibly experience. And a lot of people who went there actually made a ton of money in the Facebook era. And then for the last 10 years, they've been depressed, right? Because there's like no corporate experience like after that high that you're going to get again. And so so anything that sort of looks like it, they jump on because they're desperate for that high again. They want that experience.
Totally. It's like somebody who's gone to war needs to go back to war.
It's like nothing else is exciting. And so
yeah, that's a real thing. And we should unpack this whole thing in another pod.
So there's a pattern matching of all these execs and foreign people going over there, which has absolutely nothing to do with like actually the quality of the business, right? But it's purely about chasing that experience again at all costs, which is why you see some of these people hopping around trying to find it. Same thing with investors.
And a lot of those people have left. I mean, there's some that are still there, and there are many who have left.
Some have stayed, a lot have left because they woke up and realized it's not the same thing.
I don't know. Like, my main pushback on this, I think you're right on the business front, Sam.
But that's all that matters.
It doesn't. I was at Facebook when the product far outpaced the business, right? Like we were.
Yeah, but the business was always obvious. Like this is the thing. I mean, as someone,
I don't know, man. There were times where it wasn't like as obvious as it became. Like
Facebook was massively profitable from the early days. It was always almost zero cost from a user perspective. It was a great business from the very early days. Now it was going to get better. There was a bunch of steps to making it better, but there was no question that from a fundamental perspective, it was a killer business from an efficiency. Same thing with Google. Google made so much money. Like it was a killer business. Now it got better, but like it fundamentally started there. By the way, they both had deep, especially Facebook, deep network effects where the bigger you got, the more you compounded into a defensible position. It was an incredible business.
Well, that's the thing, actually. That's it, because I think you could argue ChatGPT has very clear revenue streams. Businesses paying for things, proven revenue stream. Consumers paying for things, proven revenue stream.
And you also have the moat.
I don't think you have the moat, Dave.
I think you do. Like the product is objectively better. Like I will argue this. Like I think that the ChatGPT product is the number one product.
Having a better product is not a moat.
But I'm not done, Sam. Like the product itself is objectively better. It's the best product of all of them. Even though you're right, you can switch back and forth between these things relatively easily. The thing that ChatGPT is becoming and continues to get better at is memory. And just like we've seen at Apple, Dropbox, like many places where data is a moat, like
data is not a moat.
I know you've written a thing on this. I actually don't agree with it. And like, I think that like,
well, let me kind of state it and then you can refute it. So first on the point that like on the data part, here's the thing. I love this thesis. When I worked at Meta / Facebook, now Meta, my team was called the identity team. And I spent all of my time on how do we organize and use history and memory and context to build a moat, right? The idea was like, other people will come, there'll be better ways to post. But if we know everything about you and have the deepest knowledge, we're gonna have the best targeting, we're gonna be able to make these undefeatable moat. That does not work in a GDPR / data portability world, right? And the reality is with these AIs, I get the story. The story is, well, we're going to have the most context on you. And therefore, we're going to, because of that, be able to deliver incrementally better experiences. You're going to have like export data, import somewhere else, and like literally in a flat file.
Everybody said that about social networks and it never happened.
No, it actually kind of did.
No, it didn't. You can't like leave Facebook and go to Twitter with all your friends and data.
No, but here's the thing. First of all, on the Facebook thing and like what happened there, right? It turned out the data wasn't so much of a note. And you know what it was? Apple's interoperable iOS address book totally shattered that, right? Because it basically created a framework for making all of your contacts portable, which is how all these networks grew, right? Like and there's a whole corporate history to how that played out. But like there's deep portability of the graph, of quote unquote the graph, which was supposed to be not portable.
But that's not true today. You can't, as an influencer, Sam, if you're like, I don't know, Mr. Beast, you can't take your followers from YouTube to Instagram or Instagram to TikTok. Like it's just, there's no such thing. Like you're literally locked in.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, they do that. Anyway, so the point is when I think the graph datability, the targeting capability, that's all turned out to play out nowhere near as expected. And the second thing to keep in mind is all these networks like Twitter, if you go and say, export my data, I'm taking it with me on Twitter, it's hilarious. You should do it if you haven't. They give you intentionally like the most broken, inoperable file formats.
Which is what these guys are going to do too.
Yeah, but they can't. It's like literally like, tell me everything you know about me. And like, by the way, you know what the beauty of an LLM is? It makes it super easy to reconstruct all that stuff, right? So I think the data argument is it's the obvious strategic argument to make. I just don't think it holds up under scrutiny at all, right? In terms of how it's going to play out.
I just think there's something more subtle here, Sam, which is that consumers are really simple. They don't care about anything that we're talking about. The general consumer just makes the decision based on like what's easiest for them to use. And even myself as a consumer user of these products, I default to ChatGPT over and over again because it's just easier. It knows what I'm talking about. Like, and I think that's what's going on across everyone.
I just don't think that, there was an article in the Information that I read, believe it or not, about an enterprise customer saying how the AI doesn't need to get better. They'd rather pay cents versus dollars for just like what's out there.
Okay, I actually had pulled that up on my screen. Sam, thank you for reading information articles. That is my love language. So
why don't you quote it then, Jess? Because this is the race to the bottom.
And this isn't someone. This is Nikesh Arora. This is the man who ran Google's business, the CEO of Palo Alto Networks. And he said in the information, he is expecting to spend less on AI to power existing products in the near term. For the tasks where we're getting efficiencies and driving lower costs, I don't think the model's IQ needs to be much higher than it already is. And I don't want to pay $1 for that. I'd rather pay 5 cents.
That's interesting. I would almost argue the opposite. Like, I would pay infinitely more if GPT got better and better.
Well, that's that Javon's paradox thing. But Nikesh is a smart guy.
Yeah, but he's also talking his own book, Jess. And, Sam's kind of making a point here. He's choosing Grok, and Grok's dollar per, unit of output to Sam is really high, right? And I remember as the Grok stuff was getting built out, thinking like, there's no way this is going to be better than ChatGPT. And Sam's actually right. Like, it is faster. It is more interesting in some ways, but it just kind of proves that there's no ceiling here. And so I think you have to really take into account that this is one of the greatest products that's been invented in the last decade, definitely, maybe the last 50 years. And there's going to be a huge business built around this.
Look, here's the interesting question, Dave. I think there's two types of VCs that are very different in the world and two types of investors. One is the kind of product-led, product dominates everything else, right? Then there's the business people, right? Who are the quality of business model really fucking matters. Business. Product is an important input. You have to understand it. You have to follow it, but it's just an input. I obviously represent in this conversation the business quality. The business matters, right? The quality of the business matters, et cetera. Now, that doesn't mean that prices don't get run up. But I think you have to go to the fundamentals here and be what is defensible? These are fundamentally business companies, and business is what actually ends up driving these things. So I don't know. I get it. I think that's not how it's going to play out. But I think what we're demonstrating here is the two very different camps of Silicon Valley, and why you have a company that on one hand, a lot of business people look at it this makes absolutely no sense. This is lighting money on fire, right? And then there's a group of people who have a lot of money who are said, fuck it, we're putting it all down because it's a good product. And we'll see how it plays out. I wouldn't be surprised if the number gets run up higher. But I don't think it's fundamentally going to be in the pantheon of important companies, right? And I think that the question is, are you a trader or are you an investor? As an investor, I don't see it. As a trader, there's obviously a buck to be made.
It is why all of this is so fun right now and interesting. And I know people can get fatigued of it, but you guys pretty nicely articulated the two different points of view on this. Brit, I assume you're more on the Dave side, but I should let you speak for yourself.
I mean, I was kind of letting Dave and Sam have their fun. That was really entertaining. Thank you, boys. But like I was saying, I was more on the Sam side, and I'm swinging slightly. And I also, again, despite what Nikesh said, I think there's elasticity in the pricing mechanisms that they offer right now, where as there are more product features and tools to be had, which I don't think it's just going to be this format forever. I will probably pay more as both a consumer and a enterprise customer to GPT. And I think that adds real value to what's already a $500 million a month business. And I think that costs continue to go down in a lot of ways for them. So I don't think the business model future is painted completely yet, Sam.
People just are using this thing every day. My inbox, my text messages, it is the most important product on the planet right now.
But Dave, I mean, just to push you, take messengers. You use messengers every day. None of them are monetized.
They're not the same.
Why are they not the same?
They are not in the process of people's thinking and understanding themselves and communicating with each other. This is an augmented intelligence resource, Sam. It's really important, and people are starting to use this as an exoskeleton that they're not going to be able to separate themselves from.
Look, I agree that you will use LLMs more and more, but I think there's a massive intellectual failure when you equate using more with value, right? Because that's just not how the economy or business works, right? I think that, and the reality is, I think the likelihood, Brit, is you will use more and pay less.
But I think it's using more in different ways. I think 5 years from now, GPT looks totally different.
Look, all I'm telling you is you talk about things you use every day that have no business. Telegram has no business. Signal has no business. WhatsApp has a theoretical business. The actual business is tiny. iOS's business is selling iPhones, right? It's nothing. There's no actual business that's about the messaging. So I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying just because you use something a lot doesn't mean it's valuable.
I think it's more like the iPhone business.
But Dave, what am I buying for $2,000 so I can use the blue bubbles in chat?
I literally think it's more like the iPhone business. You're not buying chat, you're buying an iPhone. Like that ChatGPT is an iPhone, it's not the chat. Like you're buying a computer. I pay the ChatGPT Pro price because I want that computer in my life, right? Like I am doing high level, Silicon Valley work, and I want to be able to access the computer just like I want a MacBook Pro and I want the best computing resources, right? Like that's why I pay for it. And I'm not going to stop. And you could not pry it out of my, cold dead hands right now.
Really? Because that's the thing. Like, I pay for it because I'm price insensitive on it, but like, I don't care. Like, if it went away tomorrow, there's like 4 others that are basically the same thing.
I think the battle lines are clearly drawn. I hesitate to suggest another bet, but perhaps at a future episode. What's also crazy about this industry, though, is you're not just building messaging apps on the cloud. You're building gazillion-dollar data centers all around the world and hoarding compute capacity, both because you need it, but also because you just don't want your competitors to have more. And so there's another side to all of this that is also really interesting and potentially fragile or potentially not.
But Dave, Jess, this is actually the interesting part. Like the reason this thing is like weird to think about is like right now, people have invented a fictitious business currency, which is like these things. They're using that tap dance to then get people to give them billions and billions of dollars to buy like a railroad.
What are these things? H100s?
Yeah, just buy infrastructure, buy data centers, buy whatever. And they're using it to like, it's basically like the tap dance like dream of value is actually getting people to buy a bunch of hard assets, right? Which those are in theory valuable. We don't know how valuable they are. It might be like the fiber build out where you massively overbuild, you really don't need it. Who knows?
That's why my point is this is more like the iPhone business, right? Like you're actually buying access to those H100s. Like that's what you're doing when you're paying these companies money. Like you're buying access to compute.
Yeah. No, I don't know about that. I mean, like there's plenty of compute floating around from a consumer perspective. I think it's more interesting on like capital raising side where you're taking like this marked up, extremely high leverage bet. And like if you're an investor, you're like, I got liquidation preference on a bunch of data centers. Who cares what it's worth?
Use this image thing, the image launch that they did that caused the 1 million users per hour. You cannot buy compute that does that from anyone else.
No, but Dave, the point is that you will be able to get that from more and more places. I mean, OpenAI has proved to its credit to be leading in all these product features, but they do get
months
replicated, right? Like pretty fast. The thing I want to say though about the, what was I going to say about the compute? Oh, I think it's really interesting. I love looking at CEOs and their tweets. They tell a lot about a CEO. And during this image launch, which was very exciting for OpenAI, Altman was on fire in full, like, send compute. Who has compute? If anyone has access to a cluster, DM me, right? And it's probably true. Like, I'm not actually denying the truth of it, but just this, like, that same thing, like the things are melting. And he posted one thing, I thought it was very funny, actually, which was a file name. And he said something like, if the file's named this, it will actually work this time. And the file is named like last time, totally, this is going to be it. Number 7 must work this time. And I thought that was very funny and like very like from a PR standpoint, I think this is where he's in his element because he's kind of the nerdy guy and the things all falling apart.
He's a great marketer.
Yeah. But I think it's probably this is the same time they're announcing their fundraising and it's all tied, right? And this idea of send H100s is,
It's also just a great product. And Sam, like you've always said, growth solves all problems, right? And I think that's the thing you have to factor into this, which is that you might be right that the business today is, looks kind of like Uber or whatever. Like it's not
Facebook. It's not Google. It's not a good business. Right? Like that's the big difference is you just have to understand the business model on these things. And like not all things that people like are good businesses.
But I think the elasticity is tied into people's willingness to pay for a thing. And like to me, like the willingness to pay for this thing, provided they keep executing like Facebook was executing in the same period of growth, means that they will build a big, big business over the long term. Like I feel like that's kind of
The top line number of dollars paid might be big. It's a very big difference between that and a good business.
You're talking about profit margin? What's a good business, Sam?
How about EBITDA? How about like a sustainably good, defensible business where you can over time make more and more profit, right? That's just not going to happen here, right?
Well, they have to give the profit to Microsoft, and then they actually have to convert into a company because, guys, they're not a company. And then there's going to be a multi-year lawsuit over that fact, and they're going to have to deal with regulation. So it is a high wire act.
All the things, but these are all things Facebook had to do too.
Look, AI is just ZERP 2.0, right? Meaning it's like, what do you do with tons and tons of cheap money, right? This is like the last death knell of ZERP, where people are like, fuck, we need to stuff a bunch of cash somewhere, right? Ideally with downside protection, which is nice because we're buying like fucking real estate and servers and power. So that seems somewhat downside protected with some upside, right? And like the hawkers of AI have done a really good job selling that narrative. I just, from a business perspective, I can have all the appreciation in the world for tech and understand the difference between a good technology that's going to be everywhere and like a good business. And I don't see it. So that's just the simple answer.
Okay. Well, the beauty is you will be proved right or wrong in the fullness of time.
Well, I think realistically it'll be both. Like the number go up.
You can't have a religious point of view and then say realistically it's going to be both.
This is not like Mars where there's like a date and we're clearly not going to hit it. This is a thing where like the hype cycle will continue. It will like people will trade it. Masa will put in ridiculous amounts of money. I know a lot of smart investors are desperately trying to sell at 300, right? Like that doesn't mean there won't be 500 at some point when someone else gets excited and the money's still cheap. I'm just saying it's not a good business.
I think that's the heart. I just think the heart of this is that everyone is using this thing every day. And
Dave, that's not true. I'm not using ChatGPT every day. I'm using it a few times a week.
I use Grok almost every day. I just don't. It's fine.
Guys, we have to save time to talk about this Deel stuff. I think it's like too good.
I don't know what's happening.
Okay. So Keith O'Brien, who was the man allegedly spying for Deel while working at Rippling, had to put out an affidavit today. And he basically like came forward and just was like, all right, here's the truth. Alex, how do you pronounce his name? Boise, the CEO of Deel, literally told me, I have an idea. It involves like something about James Bond. He literally used James Bond as a reference. You should become a spy for Deel. There will be a monetary component to this if you agree. And like here, we'll talk about how to do it. And he just like laid it all out there. And this is like my kind of true crime. I don't care about all this other Netflix shit going on with like the Menendez brothers and all this shit. I care about the Rippling Deel spies that are James Bond.
My favorite ski run in Alaska is called James Bond.
Also, they had a Telegram channel where they were discussing the payments. And
wait, who was?
Okay, it's Keith. It's
the
spy.
Telegram, Brit?
I know, Telegram, not Signal. It's the spy. It's the CEO, and then there's a third person just named the Watchman.
The Watchman?
Yeah.
No way.
And Keith doesn't even know who the Watchman is. Still, he like put it in his affidavit. He just knows that his initials in the chat were AD. Yeah. Anyway, that's the tea.
Guys, I can't say more about this because we're in the middle of so much reporting, but shit's going to get good.
It's going to get better?
Yeah, it's going to get better.
Oh, yes.
First, of course, the CEO was on a very important list, 30 under 30 criminals. Like, it's just like clockwork, right? It's like, you can't, like, it's like unbelievable.
He's not been convicted of anything, nor accused of criminal. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, no.
Wait, Forbes 30 under 30 he was on?
Of course, that's like the way to go to jail is to be on that list.
That's amazing.
It's just too good. It's like almost like the correlation's unbelievable.
So we're fatigued of everything else, but we have the energy for the good stuff or for the gripping tale.
Yeah, always energy for the tea, Jess.
The thing for me on this is like, I just don't understand. Like, this is so amateur. Like, what terrible spying. Right? Like, what, like, it's like, what, like, you're not even using Signal? Like, what's going on? Like, this is like amateur spying.
But I mean, Sam, it sounds like it originated out of Amateur Hour. It was like, let's do some James Bond stuff.
I know, but like this, like you guys, like you're not serious spies. Like this is like, come on. Like plus, how much? I saw some passing thing. Did he get paid like $5,000 a month for this?
It was not. Yeah, it was like trivial. It's crazy.
It's like ridiculous. Like, I mean, to go to jail and lose your $1 billion company from a deal perspective because of like some lolsy shit like this, it's just lolsy.
It was a bad deal. I mean, these headlines write themselves, Jess. I can't believe you haven't had more punny headlines on this one. Okay, can we talk about one last thing before we go here? But did you see that UFC just signed this massive sponsorship deal with Meta?
Is it actually massive?
It's pretty big.
Yeah, it's it's wide ranging. Will integrate UFC with Meta across all of its products and platforms. Also, the UFC CEO is on the board of Meta, which is sort of a weird thing.
Sure, but that Dana White's kind of cool. But like, what's the like? How many dollars are we talking about here?
I don't know the size of the dollars. Millions upon millions of dollars. I think it's just like, in some ways, cool that Zuck still has enough control of the company to like make shit happen like this, which clearly like is mostly just in his interest.
I mean, live sports is like booming as a sponsorship category. I think all the tech companies, like Google sponsors the WNBA, like, you know.
The slap league is going so fast. It's this league where people slap each other in the face. It's like unbelievable. Yeah, it's like the stupidest fucking thing. But
is it
like
part of UFC?
Yeah, and it's growing like crazy, right? So like people love this shit, right?
Oh my God, guys. Well, you know, I actually do have to bounce because it is a hella busy news time.
You're pulling a Sam?
No, she's actually saying goodbye.
My parting shot is, what's the Seth Rogen thing we love?
Oh, the studio on Apple is hilarious.
Fabulous.
It's so good.
You kind of look like him right now, Sam. You got a little Seth Rogen inspired vibe.
I'll take that as a compliment. I think Seth Rogen, I mean, like in the history of like Jewish comedy being continued post Larry David, it's like, it's so good.
It is Curb Your Enthusiasm, but in a different like format.
It's produced Curb Your Enthusiasm, and I'm here for it.
Okay. Well, with that note, we'll let you ponder, dear listeners and viewers, Sam's potential career change.
You know what also doesn't make money? It's not just ChatGPT, it's also movies.
Oh my God.
A big thanks to our back channel, our listeners, our YouTube short clickers. Guys, we're big on YouTube. So if you haven't seen us over there, check us out, subscribe, and do those things. And we'll see you back here next week for another episode of More or Less. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this show, please leave us a virtual high five by rating it and reviewing it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Find more information about each episode in the show notes and follow us on social media by searching for @MoreOrLess, @DaveMorin, @Lesson, @JLesson, and as for me, I'm @Brit. See you guys next time.